I did notice,
When I close this door, right?
yeah, there's, I think it's on page 2, there's statements alluded to a couple people indicating that the townhouse entrances are only in the back, not in the front, which is incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
So
Even
I
I
need
think
to
so.
look at that again and see
Yeah,
if
too.
it's reworded.
Well, it depends on where in the place, between the roads, because there are some townhouses that do that.
I'll show you one of them.
Yeah, in fact, ones that alluded to you, it says, Mr. Perlez said he likes the concept of townhouse having its entrances in the rear of the home instead of the front. There's an entrance in front and back. We need to clarify that. That's also stated elsewhere too.
Well, why don't you get with Jackie and have you put in what you want, because I'm not understanding what you mean. There's only one driveway. in
I
each
know, but
townhouse.
there's an entrance in the front of the townhouse facing the street and one in the back.
We're only talking about driveways.
Well, this says entrance,
Okay.
I'm talking about townhouse.
I'll have her take entrance on and put
Yeah.
driveway.
I'd like to make a motion to table the minutes of the next meeting.
So,
Second by Kevin, motion by me. Discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to development proposals. Open Road.
just very quickly, my name is Brett Schultz. I'm here last month. You guys met Alberto, our team. He is actually gonna be doing more of the presentation tonight, as most of the comments were technical in nature, which he handled, and he's the technical guy, but I'm here in reserve.
You're here for backup.
I'm here for backup, I'm the backup.
Mr. Taylor, regarding the minutes, you are correct, because there are, and Jeff, this is something to mention too. There is this road here, this cul-de-sac that has the driveways in the front, so we have.
And that's what I told Jackie, it depends on where we're at.
So some have in the front and then the other ones in the back.
And we need to clarify that, just so it's, everybody knows you get in front of the back.
Yeah, so over the last few weeks, I met with Dan Slagle in his office, went over some of the changes that we wanted on the plans, went over the comments. I provided responses, he provided a response letter. Two changes that we did to the plans was, these are still the old renderings, but one of the items was on the long cul-de-sac, we're asking for modification. He asked for that half cul-de-sac halfway there, so we've added that. We've added lighting at the CBU areas. The other item we had talked about was, for this drive aisle, or, this rear, access alley. We had it as 20 feet wide, we made it 24 feet wide per the meeting last month. We also, went ahead and put a 30-foot right-of-way through this alley, public right-of-way. In addition to that, each side has 10 feet of additional access and utility easement. So there's almost like a 50-foot right-of-way in case, and I think that the idea is.
We are declaring it a 50-foot right of way.
So we wouldn't do that?
Yes.
So that's gonna go ahead and allow it to be a public road or public alley for the project. Before we were saying it was gonna be private, so that would be public. Those were the two big changes. The other two things that kind of came up at the meeting was providing a full tree study. We had our guys go out there and we saw the trees we located, so that was completed. And then also the traffic impact study was completed by Michael Hayden from our office, and that was submitted. And the traffic impact study showed no changes, it's still the same as we had it before. And then as far as the tree survey, we identified stuff over 21 inches, and anything over 8 inches as required. So once we get final design, final LOD, we can go ahead and address, Mr. Slagle's calculations with how many trees we cut down and what the payment of use are, or the payments are for that.
Sure. So everybody should have received my letter dated March 20th, 2026, is what I'm gonna be referring to. And as Alberto did mention, it's always nice when the developer comes to our office, we roll out the set of plans, and some of the thoughts, the comments from the planning commission, and things of that nature, we can sit down there and redline the drawings and try to dispel any discrepancies that might arise, so that the product gets closer to what I would consider to be tentative approval. And again, just for the board's information, with tentative approval, all the intricate design details are not pinned down at this particular phase. So you're gonna see some comments in my letter that look like they need to be addressed, but they really don't need to be addressed until final approval. And the main thing for the planning commission with the PRD, of course, is that you're basically accepting or approving the concept of what it looks like, how the roads, the traffic patterns go, and things of that nature. So that's really what you want to focus on in this particular point. Can we tweak it later? I guess technically no, because once you approve the concept, fundamentally it remains the same. However, there are going to be certain aspects that we do have control over, like, you know, making sure site distances are there, things of that nature. And of course, there's the infamous third-party approvals. So having said all that, starting with my letter here is that at some point in time, before we do final approval, you're going to be needing to make sure that the Postal Service and the school district are in agreement with where things are located, so that the children and the mail can be delivered properly, if I said that correctly. As far as with the PRD, I will need at some point in time a phasing schedule as to if you're gonna do both simultaneously. If you indicate you're gonna do one half and then the other half, but you can pin that down for us with a phasing schedule that would be updated annually. And then, of course, when we prepare the developer's agreement, which is the last item we're talking about, the bonding and things of that nature is going to be structured and how you want to phase it. A lot of times developers are going to want to split it just for bonding purposes. As far as you will be allowed to grade in the buffer zone the way that the current PRD ordinance is set up. What the ordinance requires as a minimum, of course, is making sure that it's stabilized with as a minimum grass. However, the planning commission is at their, or could require landscaping in certain areas. And I noticed Alberto did put some landscaping in some of the areas strategically to separate those areas. Provide layout such that the townhouse building is situated, that there is adequate privacy between the buildings, noise and light. So on some of the townhouses, when we get to the tree part of it, let me turn this puppy off here, excuse me 1 second. Typically with a single, you know, everybody knows that was a flip phone, right? Okay, and no, I didn't have to crank it. But having said that, normally with the way that the PRD ordinance is structured, instead of planting numerous trees all over the place, the way that it's set up right now, they do pay a conservation and environmental fund fee, and for that, basically, you can grade the site at will with the premise that one tree in the front, 2 trees in the back, and it was geared for single-family units. But what you'll see on the plans is that when you got to the townhouse portion, where you've got 4, 5, 6 houses clumped together, what Alberto and I discussed is you'll see the same number of trees are there, but they're patterned differently on the plan, where there'll be almost like landscaping that sometimes separates some of the houses where there's not utilities. So that's where that is. On the next page, the common walls for the townhouses shall meet the fire code regulations. Where Jeff and I ran into some situations where these townhouses get to be 20 feet apart, sometimes Jeff will require whatever, like some type of like one hour retardant, some things like that.
Firewall, Jeff? I would simply just address that with, if it's IRC code, we will meet it.
Yep.
And I think that's probably best, and I don't say least said, but that's the code, we gotta do it.
Yeah, so,
And that will be on the review part when you start some.
Correct.
so provide the survey data for all the parcel boundaries and parcels identified on both plans which I think you've done that.
We
To some point.
Yeah, we haven't gone through and put, easements and meets and bounds and all the lots, but we'll do that.
But you provided a table for me with the areas and things of that nature and the building envelopes, which is what I was looking for. Is there any natural or artificial features that may impact the development that are not shown in the plans already? So the planning commission is looking at everything. Provide documentation from the fire marshal regarding the adequacy of fire hydrants. And I think you and I went over where I would suggest the fire hydrants be placed, but obviously the fire marshal will have to approve that ultimately.
I thought
You like that?
I thought
I had a
today.
discussion with Alberto today, and we moved every fire hydrant, a few lots, and we also added one on that interior road that has the rear driveways. So it'll be much safer, it's a better layout. And he has all the notes down and the types of hydrants that they have to be.
Awesome. So that's taken care of. We understand the Cove Run acquisition LP will be forming the homeowners association. So if we could just, I think you guys did send us a rough copy of that.
Yes, and just to address that, the formation of those covenants and declarations is largely dependent on what happens at these meetings. What's public and what's private and how are things, have them in rough draft form. We will provide them at will as hopefully we progress through approvals and we can pin down those details, because that truly is the means for, the reason for those.
So one thing that I just ran into on another development, where the plan was progressing through and and because the plan wasn't completed in 1 year, some of the sidewalks started to sprawl. So I went to the developers and said, hey, before we accept this plan, the township, I want these replaced. And the developer said to me, well, that's the responsibility of the homeowners association. Look at my homeowners association agreement. So we had some words and we sent back a couple of emails back and forth. But again, it's my opinion is that until the township takes it over, the sidewalks are yours. It wasn't one of your developments.
I know who it was.
Okay. So that was an interesting.
I got a call.
That was an interesting twist, that I didn't expect.
Walt, your item number 11.
Yes.
As a realtor, we had this issue about LLCs buying homes, and families can't buy, and means that they can't generate generational wealth. Is there a restriction where they cannot sell a home or townhome to a LLC or something like that?
I'll address that. That's,
Yeah.
So, as a general rule, we do not restrict the for-profit purchase of a property for, we'll just say a rental or a lease situation. However, our public offering statement, which will include the covenants and declaration and whatnot, will have provisions in it to avoid, I won't say transient, but I'll just use the word transient. So if you choose to do that, you must first submit that lease agreement to us as the declarant, such that we can review it and determine that it is for an adequate amount of time. Typically, that's 6 to 12 months, reviewing the form of that lease, such that we don't have seasonal workers or anything coming in, because we do not want that. If that lease is appropriate, then there's no issue such as legal to restrict the leasing or the long-term rental of property. However, you might disagree with me there, but we want to know who is potentially buying these. We can't control who buys them, but we can control the end user.
I was hoping one of our lawyers would say that we could, but they.
As far as I know, you cannot stop somebody from selling to an LLC.
Correct.
People buy things and trust and whatever, so.
Okay.
But if you can control the short-term leasing, it's probably.
That is our goal with that leasing provision and the covenants governing the plan.
So those covenants will apply 20 years from now? I mean, for instance, like
We
10
we
years
will
from now-
set them up for the duration of our control, and I assure you that is one, I don't wanna say it's 100%, Kevin probably speaks better than I, but it is going to be a provision that if in 10 years, the resident membership wanted to change that, it won't be by an action by a few, men or women at a board meeting at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night. That would require a substantial, if not all, sign off of everybody who lives there to modify that document.
Okay.
I think the plan community act is 80%.
Is it 80?
I think that's 80.
Good luck.
Yeah, I like the term everyone. That would-
Correct. Some provisions are 100, some are 75, some are, I'll let the look at it.
So moving on, provide the location of the parking school bus access on the plan, you have provided that, and then you're gonna confirm that with each agency. Submit a variance request, so you have two modifications, you're asking for the length of the roadway and the 10-foot setback.
Yeah, can I just, one thing, I know you mentioned earlier how, you wanted that to be a 50-foot right of way. We've talked about that, and if we do that, it's gonna pinch some of the units in the back. Let me just bring this to you. You know, there's some units here, because we have a 30-foot right of way now, plus 10 and 10, so we have 50 feet. But as you get through here, if we do 50 and then another 10, now we're pinching some of these units, and then that's gonna be, we're gonna have less than a 10-foot setback there. So that's why we had it as a 30-foot right of way, a 10-foot setback, and it also acts as a 10-foot utility and access.
So, and again, my interpretation of the 50 feet and why we have the 50 feet in our ordinance is the roadway itself is 24 feet. And the other buffer on each side, which I think is 13 or 13, something like that, is there for utilities. And basically what they're providing is a 10-foot utility easement, which to me does the same thing. Just the semantics is really what we're searching for here.
Scott asked a couple of questions on this.
Yeah.
So on the west side, I guess, there's clearly gonna be a need for modification regarding the cul-de-sac length, and the applicant has provided for the bus turnaround area. Is the cul-de-sac on the east side, is that within township limits, or do they need modification for that?
That one is long enough, I think the minimum was 250 and we exceed that. So ours is long enough, but not too long, because for the one at the end, the cul-de-sac starts just here. You know, that's the cul-de-sac, you have an intersection there.
Oh.
So that doesn't, just get right over here.
I
The
know,
cul-de-sac
I
is
just
right
wanna make sure,
there.
Dan, do you understand what they're saying?
Yeah, over
And
here,
is your
yeah.
agreement
He was
with that
saying this cul-de-sac
interpretation?
is too long, but I told him the cul-de-sac is really very good.
It's based on the intersection.
On the intersection, okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
It's good.
Regardless, is there any need to have a similar bus pull-out or turnaround on that side of the project?
Can you bring it?
I would say no, because you've got a loop street,
Okay.
and the intersection would meet your site distance and turning radii criteria. To do any more would exceed any other plan.
We did talk at the last meeting about mailbox locations. Everybody's gonna have to go to the west side to get the mail.
No, we have them on both, right?
Yeah, on both?
Yeah, if you look right over here, there's a pull-off right before the alley.
Okay, got it.
There's two parking spots
Yep,
there.
yep, okay.
And we added lights on there for now.
And where is the 10-foot setback modification request?
So the code requires 20 feet, so all the singles are 20 feet off the right of way.
Okay.
But for the townhouses, we have 10 feet,
Ah,
the front yard setback is 10 feet, not 20.
okay.
Just because we put that alley in the back.
And I do want to be, as we are seeking tentative approval, to touch on the rear by, I don't want to say by default, by the request for the townhome rear street to be widened to what will be a 50-foot right-of-way, which we previously had called a 30-foot right-of-way. That backs us into, if you will, the need for a modification for that rear setback. if that makes sense. The distance from the road to the unit doesn't change, it's just the land area between the rear-facing units. More of it is now right-of-way, as opposed to less of it being right-of-way, and that kind of circular argument makes that a requirement.
The rear requirement is 10, the front is 20, so our rear does meet code. The back-
In every scenario?
In every scenario, if we
Okay.
keep the 30 foot, like we said, yeah.
Well, if we keep the 30,
Yeah.
but Dan had mentioned if widen that to 50, so you're stealing 10 feet from both sides of stealing. That's the wrong
It's
word.
just semantics for me.
So, I understand, but as we are in a PRD scenario and with the tentative approval, with the solicitor present, those are important details that I just wanna make sure are documented, that's all.
Have more?
If I could say one thing, Kevin brings up kind of a good point, and I think it's what he was referring to. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. Hillview Lane, we don't know where these bus stops are. So, and where they're gonna be. So, we're covering road number, whatever this is.
Number 3?
Road
One
three.
I was looking at, yeah.
Okay, this one to the north, that has all the single families.
Yeah, road 2.
We're providing the wide road down there for the kids.
Yeah.
We're not providing anything down here on called townhouses and single families, where Philview meets Cove Run. Should we be doing that? Because we don't know if those buses are going in there, honestly. We always design cul-de-sac for school buses, and they mostly do not use them. Now, I'm not saying they won't here, because like road number 2, with the single families up here, or road 1, whatever it is, it's a very long road, so I'm sure they're gonna be going back there, or at least to your bump out cul-de-sac.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Jeff,
we
and
don't
we did make that intersection that does have good turning radiuses there. So when you're coming up Cove, the bus can't go there, and then when it goes on to Road 2, same thing, we have all your standard radiuses, so the bus should be able to make that turn.
Okay, but do we know, and have you had conversations with the school if their buses are going to go into the plan?
No, I
We
haven't.
do not know that, that's why I'm asking the question, should we plan on widening the entrance of Forest View Lane at Cove Run, or widen it out a little bit?
So let me just,
To say it's gonna be a bus stop.
yeah, let me ask you a question about that. This Fieldview Lane looks like a tough road. Are we planning sidewalks along Fieldview Lane?
No. But we are improving Fieldview Lane, Kevin, from the intersection of Cove Run all the way down to pretty much where there's the Jersey barrier, the gate.
Yep.
So we are shifting that road kind of closer to us and away from the game lane.
Okay.
And that road is, we're showing that road as, I wanna say 22 feet wide. So it is gonna be wider than it is now, and it is gonna be, improved. And again, that intersection with Cove Run will have all the turning radiuses there, all the, tying into Cove Run and Fieldview Lane.
How wide is Fairview Lane?
We're gonna make it,
You're gonna make it 24.
yeah, I think right now I show it as, I think about 22, we can push it 2 feet more our way.
Make it 24.
Yeah, it's tough, yeah.
My impression is Shawnee Ridge, the elementary school bus comes in, but the high school bus does not. And they stop right at the intersection, Richfield Road and Shawnee Ridge, and the kids, yeah. That's mine. And we only have 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, who knows what the school district.
Well, they just have to find out from the school district.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to getting walking, I just wonder about the safety.
There's no sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Would the applicant, if the school district have buses go into the plan, would be open to, modest condition to install some sort of bus stop shelter application?
Is the grading acceptable to do that?
On Fieldview Lane or on?
As you exit the plant, I believe that it is, but before I.
It's about where your proposed development sign is, right, Jeff?
Right here.
I mean, that's
I'm asking you
dropping
about the
second grade.
grade.
School district, we came in. Yeah, Mr. McKee, we are agreeable to adding a shelter of some sort.
Oh, and only if the school district doesn't.
And,
Yeah, yeah, correct.
I don't, they're very, very difficult to get a hold of at this level of, I'm sure I probably don't need to tell you anybody that.
Are there gonna be stop signs there, because they will help?
Certainly exiting the plan from all directions would
And
be,
even coming up, like for the school, cause we have them on Shawnee, on Ridgehill Road, they put stop signs.
we will take the advice of Public Works.
Okay,
Chief of Police is gonna
I could
have-
see how coming up, you might not want one because in a snow condition, you might not want vehicles stopping. So,
And I think Dan's letter mentioned that the signs would have to be put on based on the township requirements.
correct, that's actually in Dan's letter. The signage would be for, Public Works or Mr. Curtis. As long as it says Indiana Township on it, we'll put a sign wherever you tell them to put a sign. How about that?
Kevin? Another comment?
No.
Okay. So moving on to, we've already talked about 13, the variances. The provided schedule we've already talked about.
Okay, just, one question before you get off of 13. When you say variance in my world,
Go ahead.
okay?
That's zoning hearing board.
Right.
Yep, I know where you're going.
Okay, so why are you saying variance?
Modification.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We're gonna get rid of variance.
I'll strike that through. Okay, as far as number 15 goes, you will be tying into one of our storm sewer systems, and we will require you to clean it out and CCTV it, and then give us a design count saying that it can handle that capacity. Moving on to page 3, we talked about the size and capacities of the existing utilities. Obviously, you'll be providing the storm sewer and sanitary sewer profiles. All service lines are gonna be installed through sleeves underneath the roadway, no cutting of the asphalt. The final plan, obviously, is gonna require third-party approvals, provide lighting plan for the PRD ordinance. You have added those.
We've added the poles, but we'll provide a little photometrics too to show the foot candles when we submit for final.
Exactly. As far as the natural features goes, you're not allowed to disturb land within 50 feet of the stream. However, if you get the proper permits from DEP, you can encroach upon that stream. So, and I believe you will be getting the Chapter 105 permits and things of that nature. As far as the geotech goes, our position in the township anymore is that you will provide a full-time geotechnical engineer on site or inspector. We will not inspect it except do spot check to make sure he's there periodically. Or if he has any questions, and then at the end, it's quite a very stringent letter that he has to provide. So whoever you're dealing with, just make sure he's gonna provide that letter.
Correct. So to answer that, we, as a company, we are 100% geotech when we're making our cuts and fills. It's the best insurance you can buy. Gateway Engineers is contracted above and beyond the general engineering services provided to produce these plans. We're drilling now to develop and establish that geotechnical report, which will then be the basis of infield, not only report, but infield observation and instruction, oversight, compaction testing, the whole.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we'll provide the final report at the time of the final application too.
So number 7 of the public street, put the sleeves in. Number 8, as we mentioned previously, we'll be determining the location of those street signs in cooperation with the Public Works Department. As far as the 50 units, the secondary access, we talked about both roads entering Fieldview Lane. The curb radiuses have been widened in certain areas to accommodate better swings into the plan. The stormwater management, you'll be providing to us the stormwater sewer designs, profiles, the roof collector lines. All the roof collector lines are gonna be tested, just as if they were sanitary sewers. All the pipes underneath my road are RCP. We talked about the roof collector lines already. As far as the trees goes, you have provided a tree survey, which we will verify out in the field just to make sure we're on the same page, and documented in the developer's agreement in cooperation with our solicitor. Replacement trees, so a minimal caliber of 3 inches. And just to let the board know is that a lot of times what the developer will end up doing is putting in like 2-inch diameter tree or 2.5, because by the time we actually accept it, they end up being 3-inch trees at the end of the day.
He said that.
Does that mean you're gonna go out there with calipers and check each one before the board approves it?
You get a really short cut.
The one thing that I guess we're running into a little bit, is that our ordinance requires the planting of trees so that the plants look like they're starting to be reforested. A lot of residents, not a lot, a few residents will come up to us and say, well, I don't want a tree. And I'm gonna cut down your goddamn tree and blah, 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 blah. So the way we've been playing this, and I don't know how it's handled in the HOA, but basically the trees will be there when we accept it. And then what the property owner does with the trees after that, we'll let the HOA struggle with that one, as to whether they maintain harmony and unificity throughout, like that word throughout the plan.
In our plan, some homeowners did opt not to get a tree. And you were able to get 2 or 1. I got 1. My neighbor got 2. Other neighbor didn't get any. Is there a way where we can, the trees that are turned down, where they can be planted somewhere else? So we will still get, say, the 516 trees?
Let me put it this way, I personally am not opposed to it. Again, we have a full planning commission here, you guys can tell me what you think. Obviously, the supervisors will determine that. But our opinion is that at the day of acceptance, there will be a tree there. After that, whatever's in the HOA.
I love the idea. I truly do. I see the management, the maintenance, the enforcement, the record keeping, and did it actually get planted and where did it get planted being problematic with respect to how that is administered. I want to say that I'm open to the idea, but if 3 are required, we prefer to put 3 in as opposed to putting 1 in, and then I'm sending someone to a remote location somewhere, and I'm assuming that would be determined by somebody not me, and then someone else has to come and confirm that those are there, and then they gotta come back a year and a half later when I want to get the roads turned over and confirm that they're still alive, and at that point in time, what trees are they, because they're gonna end up in a park. The idea is great, the practicality, I believe, is very hard to administer. My own opinion.
So if we don't deviate from that, what Preston had asked is not protocol. We have a certain number of trees per lot, and that's what the developer puts in by way of the agreement. Simple. Because otherwise it would be a nightmare to try to keep track of.
Correct.
Yeah, I know.
You'd be running around looking for a tree down in Emerling Park and 10,000 of them.
Like I know the city of Pittsburgh, you can't plant trees, you gotta pay.
Well, I could
$600
exploit
for
that.
like tree you can't, you know what I mean, so there's always that kind of stuff.
Try to exploit that.
I think what it is Jeff doesn't want to be he doesn't want the new
I don't
title.
wanna be the tree police.
The tree police. We get a green hat with a little tree on it there. So moving along to,
Wait, I have a question. When is the verification of the planting of the trees? Is that whenever Jeff does the last inspection of
That's
the property?
before he does his final inspection.
when we do the letter of final matters, that's one of the things that we address.
That's Dan will be looking for his final paper.
So if I'm now a little confused, since this is gonna take probably a year to a year and a half to develop the whole thing probably. I move into the house, I had 3 trees there, all of a sudden I take 2 away. You're gonna come and inspect at the end of the day. Is that how it's done?
Yeah.
And whenever I only have 1 tree in my property, you're gonna go back to them and say, hey, you need to get the
In
other
the letter of
trees.
final matters, they'll say that lot number 15 is missing 2 trees and then the developer can go hash it out with the homeowner and hopefully there's gonna be some language in the HOA that gives him the teeth to do that.
I just needed to know where the verification is on when and who, so you answered it.
I just pointed out.
Thanks.
But to your point, in some of our earliest developments, I'll use the Manor Hardwoods as an example. To get to the 80% part took something like 12 to 15 years. Indiana Township was not a hotbed of growth. And for that matter, I'm gonna say it still isn't. But anyways, 12 years, I mean, the trees get pretty big in 12 years. Moving on to the different fund fees, the conservation and environmental fund fee will be paid by the developer, as per the tree survey and our confirmation of that. We received letters from Deer Creek. You will be required to prepare and submit a planning module since Deer Creek and/or Alcazar are both under consent orders. We've already talked about the confirmation of the fire hydrants by Jeff. The easements will be, of course, put on the plans, recorded plan for us. The sidewalks will meet our American with Disabilities Act only at the intersections of the roads. And you will be installing crosswalks and, I call it bubble wrap.
Protectable warning strips.
Yeah. So are those on the plans?
Yeah, I showed the air.
Okay, that's what I thought. Monuments will be installed at the boundaries to help define all the different lots. The recreation fee will be paid by the developer at the tune of $825 per dwelling unit, which will be used by the township and other parks throughout the township. You will be paying an impact fee of $190 per unit. The special purpose.
No, write that down real fast.
1,900.
Sorry, $1,900 per
There you go.
unit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There is a special purpose stormwater management fund fee of $16,000 per basin to defray the cost of the MS4. At some point in time, I will go back and revisit that because now the DEP regulations have changed, requiring multiple smaller detention basins. The $16,000, it's a little excessive.
And that is in fact happening.
Oh, I know. And
Your impervious and your disturbed area ratios are requiring more basins, it's a little out of control.
yeah, so that's something I need to address, but I haven't done it for your, and I can tell you that for Frederick Farms, the total number of basins was enforced by the supervisors. Address the Allegheny County economic development comments, provide the HOA agreements, which you've already been aware of, provide the third-party approvals, and then finally enter into a developer's agreement as prepared by your solicitor. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to kind of go through a quick summary. Sidewalks will be installed on one side or both sides?
On the single family portion, on the portion over here, that has it on both sides. And then over here, we just have it all on the perimeter where the single family houses are. Not within the inside of the townhouse.
I'd like to see sidewalks on both sides in front of the townhouses. People are gonna park there. I don't wanna walk into the street.
Just remember, we have utilities underneath it, and if I put my water authority hat on, or my sanitary sewer, we don't like sidewalks over top of our water lines.
Well, then the other problem's gonna be is that they get their waiver for the 10-foot setback. That's really crunching everything in, pushing those houses forward, and it's not leaving a lot of room for utilities and sidewalk.
And that's one of the reasons why we broadened that road to 24 feet without a wedge curb.
I'm not talking about,
The road needs to be narrowed down a little bit because.
I'm talking about the road that has the single family on one side.
Right, and the townhouse on the other,
Yes.
I'm talking about. People who are gonna visit the townhouses are gonna park in front of the townhouse, they're not all gonna park in back, because they're either not gonna be aware there's parking back there.
Yeah, but then
or
that's
you're
gonna be
going
determined
over.
by the chief of police on which side that's gonna all happen, and that's, again, yet to be determined, so, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so people are gonna park their cars and walk to the sidewalk to go in front of the townhouse. Do we want them walking on the road? I prefer not, especially if they have kids.
If I could just ask one quick question there along that same line, that might work. So, let me just, I can cover it. For the townhouse units, or the other ones, single car garage or double?
Double.
Double car garage. Is the driveway out of each one of the double car garage gonna match the width of that?
It'll be a foot wider on each side, so
So
you're gonna
you
have
have-
18 foot, you're gonna, you did this and we didn't, I didn't wanna show you. Alberto went and showed how many cars can be parked in those driveways in the rear. It was like 430 cars, it looked like a beehive, so I think
You said 6 cars could park in each driveway. Is that correct?
depending on which one, some of them, yeah, some of the 35.
My point to your thought, Dan, is that based on the width of a double car driveway, and the closeness of all the townhouses, what is the spacing between the driveways on a townhouse?
Attached units, like,
So you have a bunch of townhouses,
Mhm.
and out of each townhouse, you're gonna have a 20-foot wide,
8 or 10 feet.
and then you're gonna have another 20-foot driveway.
Correct.
The spacing between it, I bet you is gonna be somewhere between 4 and 6.
You're gonna have your,
Maybe a little more, right?
yeah, it's gonna be 6 to 8, because you're gonna have 2 foot, your garage door, your 2 feet.
So in order to
Yeah,
accomplish what
just
you're
doing-
thinking about, if they just pave a little bit in between the gap, if you will.
My point is, okay, if people are regular visitors to a townhouse, and they're probably gonna be aware to park in the back. But if someone's having a party, they're not gonna, either not gonna fit back there, or they're not gonna know that there's even parking back there. You know, you've got delivery people and all that other kind of stuff coming out, they're gonna go in the front of the house, they're not gonna go in the back this way. You know, how do you direct people to say, oh, the parking is down this alleyway behind the townhouses?
I mean, Jeff, as you were saying, I mean, the fire chief say don't park on just park on the other side for street
Not the
parking.
fire chief, the chief of police.
For street parking,
Yeah.
they get out and be on the sidewalk, walk down, and get across where they
Yeah,
have to
that's
go.
gonna be his determination, but if you remember, guys, that was a solution to the whole problem last month. Remember when I wanted to do the 4-way intersection? Kinda got shot down by the developer, remember? I would've had that parking lot there in that triangular piece in Philview. I could have a parking lot there, we could have nobody parking on the street. Just saying.
I gotta call the game commission, they are not.
I'm just saying.
Your
I
concern is
believe
that they're not
we
walking
have
the
tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, this isn't a parking, this isn't a parking
Townhouse,
concern,
they're not
this is
all
a
parking.
pedestrian safety concern, right? This isn't a parking concern, it's
Yeah.
a pedestrian safety
Yes.
concern, yeah.
But if they park on the other side of the street, as determined by the chief of police, they're gonna have to walk across the street anyhow. To go to the townhouse.
I would point that out, our intention is that from the front door of each and every townhome, that the sidewalk would extend to the back of the curb. Provided, if there's a party and 200 extra cars are there, it's a free-for-all, there's nothing I can do about that. However, I would also venture a guess that if you're there on an average day, and I'm going to unit, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a sidewalk from that curb to that front door. No matter what I do, somebody's getting out of that car into traffic. My presumption would be I'm going to park in front of the unit into which I intend to enter. So the passenger side, in this case, would exit right onto the sidewalk serving that unit. The driver of that car, whether he's or she is gonna walk on the sidewalk back, I would never park 400 feet down the street to walk up the road to go to a friend's house.
But if you have 10 cars parked in front of, somebody's having a party, you're gonna end up parking 40, 50 feet down the road.
I can't disagree with that, but I just drove through one of the, we put in more sidewalk that's never been stepped on than, it drives me nuts, because no matter what you do, people are gonna walk in the road anyways.
I think
And it also, I think, goes to, and it's opportune time to bring this up, is that the rear street, which is now, going to be a public, we were requested, we initially proposed that at 20 feet wide to 24 to allow, I don't know, more activity, more pedestrian
Well,
traffic
I
back there and all of that. I mean,
I said to make it as wide as possible, because if we're gonna have all driveways funneling out to that point, we wanna make it as wide as
and
possible.
people
so it's
walking,
not tight.
and people walking on that street just the same.
We're not
right?
gonna control that, right, but they are gonna do that. But every driveway funneling out into that space, that road, should be as wide as possible. Because somebody's gonna park out there too.
Well, my point is, I know people are gonna park out there. If I'm going to my buddies, is I'm gonna park everybody in. So I
I can't visualize in my head right now a clear spot to clearly park on that interior road. Because you're gonna have driveways
Like you said,
everywhere.
there's driveways
More
everywhere.
space.
But somebody will do it.
it's going to happen.
And then something the police will get called because a car is blocking somebody's driveway,
That's right.
they'll get towed, so, it's fine.
Oh,
I'm
they-
about parking in front, not.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying by pushing those townhouses closer to the street with the houses, single families on the other side, it's gonna be very tight to put a sidewalk in with the utilities because. we run into-
Especially out in the mountains, we have landscaping up there.
So
too.
maybe get focused on what Dan's concern is, because I think we've gotten off track here. So we're talking about Road 2.
Yeah, road two.
And the developer is already proposing to put a sidewalk along the, where's the, I guess,
Single family residence.
along the side with the single-family residence.
Correct.
What Mr. Taylor is asking is whether it would also be possible to put a sidewalk on the side of Road 2 that abuts the townhouse. And my question for Mr. Slagle is, if we're squeezed because of setbacks and utilities and blah, 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 can we require a sidewalk that's less than the township minimum width? Or what, yeah, or whatever. Mr. Taylor's point is nothing, it really has nothing to do with parking except tangentially. It's really going to look at people walking on that street.
I'm also thinking in terms of if someone is handicapped. They're gonna get out of the car and maybe get into a wheelchair. Now, if the car's parked on the street, there's no sidewalk, they can get in the grass.
In that situation, ADA, you're giving them space in the back. They're gonna
Yeah,
have provisions.
how do they know it's parking back there? There is no parking.
Well, if they're going to visit somebody and they're handicapped, they should probably have some connection of knowing, hey, park in the back.
And I would also point out, if there is nothing to preclude someone from, if I'm parked on the side of the street in the townhouse section, bluntly, if I have to park 500 feet away and I'm not comfortable walking in the street or in the grass, and there's nothing to stop someone from walking in the grass, I have every opportunity to walk across the street, walk up that sidewalk and cross the side, cross the street again, if I truly don't want to walk up any part of the road.
Cul-de-sac neighborhood, this is like a through street where cars could be just flying by here. I mean, speed limit for the residential is what, 15, 25 for?
Yeah, that's right, it'll be 25.
Yeah, you know,
Possibly 25 to be enforced, I believe.
25.
Twenty-five to enforce, right.
I hate, actually, you just triggered another thought you're not gonna like. Are your covenants going to impose a pedestrian rite of passage in front of those townhouses?
They were-
I can see 7 or 8 years from now, we're all dead and gone, some homeowner getting uppity trespassers and prohibiting people walking in his front yard when they're trying to go to the people's side.
But the fact that it's a 50-foot right of way,
Now you're making them walk in the street, that's.
no, the 13 feet from the back of the curb.
The grass is gonna be in the right of way.
Yeah, the grass would be in the right,
All right.
it's just a matter of the surface that you would
Thank
want.
you.
But their right of passage is guaranteed forever, as long as you
Okay.
folks don't disband rights of way. Which I don't think you can doubt.
Okay.
Sounds like fantastic.
Alright.
You guys agree with me, fine, if you don't, that's fine too. So if we're managing.
Dan, are you done? Because I've got a couple of quick questions.
I just have one more comment.
Okay.
To make it real quick. As far as sidewalks goes, if we look at the townhouse portion, the field view lane, between, you've got 3 roads, and I don't know how you number them. But what I would like you to consider is putting a sidewalk along field view lane so that it makes one big sidewalk loop.
That's fair, done, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that way they have a walking trail, and you can promote it as a walking trail, so it's one big sidewalk loop. That was the only thing I was saying. But on that, so where your thumb is, that's a typical double asphalt driveway. And that's the 6 foot or 8 foot grass strip between them, okay? Where the tree's gonna be planted. What I was gonna suggest back there is that if they pave just a little bit between those little nooks there, you have your,
Yes.
those little things there. It's not that much more asphalt when they're out there. Now you have your sidewalk that's going down the edge of both sides.
Yeah, you can't park a car in an 8 foot spot, because you're blocking somebody's driveway.
Now I'm talking about walking.
Where they would use part of the driveway as walking to
Yeah, the walking space. So you basically have your sidewalk.
Well, yeah, my concern is people who are parking and then walking to their destination, to the house they're going to, the property they're going to, not people who are just walking.
So didn't you provide a schematic, at least I have it, it shows that in those driveways, you can put 4 cars?
We did. for our last-
So you can put 4 cars, now, obviously my garage is considered for the crowd.
Like most people's.
Yeah.
Well, if you include the garage as parking, which
That's 6.
is 6, you had mentioned 6, was the entire design premise that we worked through on the rear load to keep cars from the front. And I can't just, somebody's going to park out front. This entire design is premised on, I mean, quite honestly, we're building a 3rd road to serve townhouses that we only needed to build 2. And that is why, if you're sensing a little pushback from me, is that we added a road in the back to keep pedestrians and traffic out of the front yards for this express reason. Otherwise, we just eliminate that road. We didn't want to do it because they thought it was gonna look like,
In the front of the house.
yeah, we pushed the houses back. You know, we pushed the townhouses further away, and we add the sidewalk, and I eliminate that whole road. I have to push back a little bit in it, just I can't give it everything
But to
in
your
an
point,
additive
too,
measure.
Dan, is that we could easily revert it back to a private road, make it 15 feet wide, which is all they would have to do, and take 15 minus 24, that's 9 feet, and that's room for your sidewalks. But for me, as we talked about the last meeting, we needed places to push snow. And instead of pushing it onto people's grass, the developer offered to widen it from 15 feet to 24, which is, that's 9 feet.
Which is also your trash cans on trash can, so we can put all the covenants we want. It's where the basketball hoop's gonna go, or the lacrosse net, or whatever it is, it's going to happen.
Now, what we could do, too, is on your 24-foot wide, we could have them paint a 3 foot, a line, 4 foot from the edge of the road each side. That would be 8, that would still give you
Are you
50.
talking about the alleyway or the street in front?
This is the alleyway in the middle.
Yeah,
Have
we're talking
them
about the street
paint,
in front.
have them paint a.
You guys are, you're,
Yeah, your concern is fine.
So now you got 2 bike trails on each side, or 2 sidewalks, that obviously people will drive on, but anyways, just a thought.
It's a concern of mine, yes.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah. Is it good?
A couple of quick questions. So the tree survey, I found the language in the cover memo, it's a little bit odd. It says the area that was able to be complete thus far from the tree survey. So did they look at the whole property or is this part of it?
We looked at the LOD, what we have for a rough LOD right now. I mean, I didn't do the whole property because we have 100 acres, we're only disturbing 60 acres. So,
Okay,
You
okay,
know what I
thank
mean?
you.
That's more time for
No,
Kevin.
no, that's fine, I just didn't understand that reference. And the second question, this is more for Dan. They're supposed to, not Dan, the engineer. They're supposed to preserve, trees with a 21-inch or greater DBH, unless they can show that they need to take it down. And they identified on this study 165 trees at that time. You guys know, are you gonna have to take any of them down?
I mean,
those,
some in the middle, yes, but some around the perimeter. Like I said, once I get the tighter LOD, get all everything put in, we may be able to save some of those.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see a lot of them were, because the top of the sites were more bare, and then on the edge or steeper part, that's where a lot of more of the mature stuff is. So.
And Mr. Keegan, that also goes to, as is noted, the third-party approvals.
Right.
As we're paralleling, as we're working through this hopeful approval, we're working with Allegheny County Conservation. They're gonna have their comments, the same as you are about the pipe and the pond and the this and the that, so, which is why you expanded it slightly beyond the LOD to,
We're a little loose, but we're not, we're gonna shrink that a little more with the final plans.
So, I'm not a traffic, engineer expert. I've read a lot of these in my lifetime, and they always confuse the heck out of me, but, for the benefit of the public, I mean, this is a single-family home development, so you're really not adding a significant amount of traffic. The AM peak hour is less than 2 cars a minute. That's almost nothing, frankly. But, I have a question for Mr. Slagle. Was this study reviewed by a traffic engineer, and or are you satisfied with it?
I'm satisfied with it, and I have a degree in traffic engineering.
Okay.
Yes, I do, believe it, I have an associate degree in traffic engineering. I have a bachelor's degree in water resources engineering, and I have a master's degree in civil engineering. And I'm also a certified water plant operator of any size. I'm also a certified wastewater plant, I can go out and operate out the San Juan.
And tell them that you're the president of Pee Wee.
I am the past
Kevin,
president of
until you get to, from a
And I
traffic,
barely sit on,
until you get to 250 at a minimum, it barely is even a.
It's a blip. It's a blip.
If there's a soccer game happening that day, you're.
So the only thing that I wanna get straightened out before these guys make a decision is Dan Taylor's question. Do you think, as the engineer, there's enough room in front of the townhouses on road number 2 to put in a sidewalk? Moving the townhouses forward 10 feet, I mean, there's still room, but you as the engineer, you deal with this all the time out in the field, when you're lining up utilities and trying to fit a
So-
sidewalk in it, sometimes it's difficult.
When we have our utility meeting, because right now the plans don't accurately pin down where the utilities will ultimately end up. And our new way of doing things here in the township is we will have a joint utility meeting, and everybody picks a slot. And I can tell you that if we put sidewalks there, everybody's gonna say that they can't do it. Or they don't want to, or it's not their procedure.
Might I point out something that I do believe is important? Is the PRD ordinance under which we are submitted and we are governed requires sidewalk on one side. Like it is not, we're supposed to do 2, and we didn't want to because of all these other considerations about moving the homes closer to the road to accommodate a rear road, get the streets off, the cars off the street. We're following the ordinance, quite honestly.
So what are you saying, you don't have to put both sides in?
We never had,
Right.
this isn't like we were supposed to, and then we asked for a modification to do this, and we all agreed on that, and then that has kind of backdoored us into this question. We meet the ordinance.
The question has come up, we would like to see a sidewalk in there, so it's a give and take, right? You know, you've been
I
doing this
understand.
a long
Well, my
time, so have I.
right.
You're asking for other modifications.
I understand.
The township's gonna give them, we're just having a discussion.
Oh, and
It's plain.
I'm not, I just thought I didn't know that maybe that got glossed over.
No.
And I would say if, on the give and take side, I wasn't a big fan of widening the rear road to 24 feet. I understand why you wanted it for the purposes of the functionality of it, making it wider and turning radius and all those things. That's fine, but I didn't really, I'll say it, it's more costly to do that. I see a lot more things happening back there that might not be happening. Maybe speeds are higher. Cars are trying to park back there because now it's the appearance of a regular township collector road. But we did it because that was what was asked at the last time we were here.
So the cartway width for us, when making a public road, is 21 feet. And then there's a 1.5 foot wedge curb on each side that makes it 24. What we kind of all discussed and agreed to is that instead of putting the wedge curb, 3 feet of wedge curb, that we would make it all flat so that it would match up against
Which
there.
is really not costing him any more.
No, but our initial proposal was only 20, was just a 20-foot wide private roadway in the rear of the townhomes.
What I didn't wanna see is a 15-foot driveway in the back that would be private. Because now all of a sudden you got this wonderful plan, all these very expensive $600,000 houses, and I got a 15-foot driveway because you can't squeeze two cars on a 15-foot neatly. Especially with garbage cans out there, and basketball hoops and all that kind of crap, that I hope happens. So by him stretching it from 15 to 24 back there, and then what Alberto and I decided to do is, in lieu of the wedge curves and having it crowned, it's gonna be dipped, and the storm sewer will run down the center, and that way I don't have a need for wedge curves anymore. So there was some give and take to make me a better road that would be public, and then that takes some of the onus off the citizens that would be there. That was our thoughts. And again, if you wanna put a stripe down there so that people walk down the asphalt,
I don't want to push through.
that's up to you guys.
I've also seen it.
I'm torn on this, but I just wanna make sure I understand what we're asking to discuss. So on the single family side, there's sidewalks on both sides of the street, right? On the side that has a townhouse, on Road 2 and Road 3, there are sidewalks in front of the single family homes, right?
The white line.
Right, but there are no sidewalks on the side of Road 2 and Road 3 that abut the townhouse.
And the inner,
Correct.
But there will be sidewalks that take you out.
There's gonna be walkways, but they're not sidewalks per se. Okay. And the applicant has agreed that he's gonna put a sidewalk on Fieldview Lane so that there's a connection there, right?
Yes.
Correct.
but really, Mr. Taylor's point is, if I'm trying to get to unit T58, and there happen to be 10 other cars parked here at the point in time when I got there, and I've got to park down here, my route is
walking
either
in the
across
grass.
the street,
Yeah.
up here,
Or you're walking in the grass.
or you're walking in the grass, or you're
Walking in the
or
street.
you're walking up the side of the
And Dan,
Yep.
is there insufficient room to put a sidewalk because of the
Utilities.
utilities?
I don't know where the utilities or where they're gonna want them,
Okay.
but it's starting to get crazy. Now, the gas company,
That's what I was gonna.
because of crossing the roadway, they now want a gas line on both sides, and they're taking the 0 to 2 foot slot, which screws up all my water lines. And now my water lines are all in the 5 foot slot, but if there's a sidewalk there, they've moved to the 9 foot slot. But the point of the matter is that when you squeeze an underground gas line, possibly, you're gonna have underground electric.
You're gonna have 2,
Elect-
5, 12, like,
And I
every
want-
3 feet, there's going to be a utility.
And I wanna keep the electric away from my water lines for electrolysis.
Yeah.
I want the gas lines away from my sewer lines, because the gas leaks into the sewer lines and explodes the houses. So I don't want that anymore. And it's an interesting dance.
And Dan, I modeled these plans based off of what we did at Fred before, the two gas lines and the water on the other side. And you can see, Kevin, if you want to see, you guys can see here.
It gets busy.
My utilities are here, so you can see, there's gas on both sides. You have gas and water, and the water company doesn't want the sidewalk on top of their water line. So now if I have to put a sidewalk on this side, it's gotta be outside of that 50-foot right of way. Now I'm getting an easement. So now my sidewalk is within 10 feet of the building. It's only gonna be 5 feet of the building.
And generally speaking, the electric providers will not go anywhere but 1 to 3 feet outside of the right of way, so
They're only pulling back 14 feet from the back of the curb.
they will not, if you want electricity, it's going a foot outside of the right
The
of way.
problem with electricity is that the transformers are in those boxes, those green boxes, and those have a radius where the
Bleed off.
waves start to destroy my water lines. And the gas lines, thank God, are now HDPE, so that doesn't hurt them too much anymore.
Yeah, and even on the other side too, we have the storm collection system, which I tried to pull out of the road because, Dan, all the crossings here, he wants them to be RCP, but then the other pipe I pull out of the road, so now that's kind of under the grass strip. then you have the water line there also, then you're really just in at the right of way line. So if you try to put a sidewalk, it's almost outside of the 50-foot right of way now. And outside of the 50-foot right of way, we only have 10 feet to the building. So now if you try to put a 5-foot sidewalk, now you got 5 feet to the building.
But anybody walking down that center, we call it an access road, but that center road, because it's 24 foot wide and no edge curves for people to sprain their ankles on, it's a very easy path down each edge of that roadway to go between townhouse to townhouse.
Well, I'm just throwing this out there. There are a couple spaces, for example, between, I apologize for my eyesight, between townhouse 67 and 68. There's a bit of gap between the buildings. A little further down, there's a gap between some buildings right as you start to bend. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, these gaps here, we plan some.
I understand. So here's my question. In order to encourage people to use the sidewalk and then cross the street, would you object to putting crosswalk markings there? Or a pedestrian cross sign here?
Not in the least. You mean, so, pedestrian.
So you gotta give them a landing spot, and the obvious landing spots would be between the townhouse buildings.
Not at all.
I mean, I know that they oppose mid-block, crossings because it's not really controlled, so we're trying to cross the street.
PennDOT?
I think yeah, I think you
This
wanna.
is a township
Yeah.
street.
No, I understand, if that's something that.
ADA might,
Yeah.
but they would not like,
That would encourage people.
That's my point.
Yeah.
When you get people off the street.
Just keep in mind is that.
They might need to be offset to an extent because, to Dan's point about
Yeah.
transformers, the unfortunate thing is the ditch is this wide, and the transformer's 6 by 6 blocks you
Yeah.
gotta deal with,
They
which
like
is,
being right in front of the lot.
and they wanna be right
Just
on
for
the
the
wall.
record, how wide is the sidewalks that you're proposing, just so I know?
I think we're showing them as 5 feet, 5 foot wide.
I believe that's the road standard.
It is, but, for the board's information, they can be as narrow as 3, and with bump outs once in a while, that's how narrow they can be. But keep in mind is that in our township, none of these sidewalks are ADA friendly. The only thing we have is, the crosswalks are ADA only, just because of the topography of all of our roads. It's
We'll have to make sure that's
just the nature of the beast.
You've convinced me it's probably technically impossible to put a sidewalk right in front of town.
It's hard.
Mr. Taylor, even the reality, if we went from 5 to 4 to 3, if in the middle of the night, a water line needs dug up, and it's a foot off the edge of that sidewalk, there's.
If they're willing to commit to 5.
When you start talking about the way
That's a lot of
where
work.
the utilities are gonna go within off the pavement.
Everybody wants to be in the first 14 feet. And also, everybody wants 5 foot of separation from everybody else. You start adding this up, the right of way should be 75 feet wide.
I'm glad we had this discussion, so I just wanted to clear that up a little bit.
Traffic engineering hat on.
Oh, those pins on this propeller.
I was reading through the traffic study,
Must have been really
a
bored.
lot of work went into that to make it totally incomprehensible to us laymen.
I can give you the clip notes, this is what the traffic engineer gave me, the summary of, what that report says.
Basically, what I'd like to know is, when your development is built, how long is it gonna take somebody to get, during peak traffic hours in the morning, how long will it take somebody to get onto Route 910 from Cove Run Road? Assuming they make left turns and right turns.
I mean, I know the queues didn't change that much because of their insignificant. So as far as waiting at an intersection, you're not gonna be waiting 3 minutes, so now you've lost time. I think whatever it takes you now is what it's gonna take you. when it's done.
So basically what you're saying is, the traffic engineers are saying, your impact is not gonna make any difference. Because right now, there's one car comes off Cove Run Road every 2 minutes roughly, based on current conditions. That's what I read in the study. Okay. We're going to adding maybe another 100 or so cars during peak
For
traffic.
the peak traffic, you're adding 2 cars per minute. That one car that was 2 minutes has got the full 2 minutes to get wherever he or she is going. Chances are he or she is not even there. And now you're gonna go, okay, the second car, and now we're getting down to, are you making a right, are you making a left?
That makes a big difference, okay? Because right now, during the morning peak hours, on Route 910 heading, I would consider west, not north. Because 910 is an east-west road, basically. It takes, you get one car passing every 12 seconds. And heading eastbound, you get one going by every 7 seconds. Now, if someone's going to be making a left-hand turn off of Cove Run Road onto 910, how long do they have to wait, get a break in traffic to go? Or do we get to that point where they're going to sit there long enough to get frustrated and do something stupid and cause an accident?
I mean, based on what they told me, it was insignificant at peak times. But I don't have that, I can get that.
Could you ask them to say how long they're going to be waiting, what's the maximum wait time?
First, no one can predict that that's what I know of these traffic. It's not one car every 12 seconds being each and every 12 seconds. It's not a steady stream of every 12 seconds. And that, I believe that somebody's going a little fast.
I can ask the traffic, I'll send an email to Jeff and to Dan.
Because what I'm thinking of, okay, Cove Run Road splits at the bottom.
Correct.
You got 2 lanes that reach out to 910. If it's gonna become difficult to make a left-hand turn, I assume most people right now come out the main part of the road. Maybe we might have to consider making right turn only during the peak morning hours off of Cove Run Road for the one side, and everybody wants to make a left turn, has to use the other road. Okay?
So that, sir, I don't disagree, and we will happily provide the signage and the signage plan to do that. But when we get, I'm gonna say, that far away from the community itself, and Joe, you know, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I don't get to mandate what signage goes on a township road at Route 910, 2 miles away from the site, to mitigate right turns only between 7 and 9 a.m. I don't know, you might not have heard that.
I did hear that.
So-
We were looking at the traffic study.
So it came out where Cove Run splits,
Okay.
hitting 910. The thought potentially was if left turns, which are not warranted, there's no,
I heard Dan saying that about every 7 seconds, or comment.
yeah, but it's,
A car on Cove Run Road making a left-hand turn, what if we make Cove Run Road right turn only coming out the main entrance of the new part? If we don't make a left turn, they have to use the new roadway.
I think that's something the township will decide later.
that's where I was going, I don't have a say in that, that's your road, it's 2 miles away or a mile. Yeah, and there would be,
Service isn't changing.
all I can say is we'll buy the signs.
And the other thing too is that the township is acquiring a sizable traffic impact fee, which addresses the
Right, that
town.
would pay for it.
Yeah, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised, Dan, if that's not in the original traffic study that HRG wrote.
Because I know, even looking at the number of every second, I know also, you don't come north and south at the same time. You always get that point where, okay, it's clear that way, but here comes a car that way, so I can't go.
It's the Facebook
you know.
algorithm.
We don't want people sitting there getting frustrated to the point where they do something dumb.
We do not want that out of that.
Shawnee Ridge and this plant probably about the same size in terms of rooms.
Yes.
Oh, the biggest one would be bigger.
Okay. I don't go to work at 6 in the morning, but I have never seen a traffic issue except for 2:30 in the afternoon when the school bus is coming and the parents come down and they park to pick up their kids. And the nature of work has changed, where a lot of people are working from home. So we're not getting the type of traffic that we would customarily receive if we go back in time. Now, when you get to, 910 Richland Road, I mean, you get, no, 910, you get to 910, yeah, there's gonna be more traffic. But I have not seen a traffic issue in Shawnee Ridge, except for in the afternoon, people parking to pick up their kids from work.
Which through this design is, from last month, we added accommodations on the north side for that to occur, and then I've agreed, dependent upon what the school district ultimately says their route's gonna be, to provide something internal if that were to happen, where, you know, there's at least a designated safe space, if that's an appropriate word to use, or term to use.
And just finally, is that, before you gentlemen consider this, is that, obviously this has to go before final approval, if it gains approval, the tentative approval. Do you agree to Kevin's and Dan's point that, if the US Postal Service or school district wants something different, that you'd be willing to consider that at the final approval stage?
Certainly, yeah, yes. But for the record, the Postal Service does not even wanna talk to me, at least until I've got up. So I will say yes, to the extent something different isn't,
So if we
we
need,
just don't like it.
if we need to tweak it.
If we need to tweak something, if we need to move a CBU station, if we need to widen something, we're very reasonable.
We'll address it then. Yeah, I just want you guys not to get pinned in that by approving this, we're stuck with, that's a bad word, that we're agreeing to what they have on the plate.
Okay. Any other comments?
No.
We were just looking down here, the page 11 of the traffic study has commentary about a queue analysis, and it says, the analysis shows that the construction of the proposed development will result in negligible queues at the study intersections. I don't know if that helps.
They studied 2 existing intersections and the 2 new ones for us.
Any comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
So, I asked this question last time as well, but I'm just bringing it back up to really get discussed today. Just looking at, this is the one that has the thing going through. The majority of the people that are going to buy these houses are going to have children that are school age. Okay, that's who we would be attracting into the township. And I'm going to assume that the HOA is going to say that you can't put a fence in the front yard. Is that accurate? Well, I mean, there, isn't the initial HOA set by the?
I would be the initial HOA.
Right, so.
And I wouldn't necessarily oppose, I would want to evaluate each and every application for where that fence exactly went. Not to bring up utilities again, but I don't oppose fences in the front yard, provided that it's not an obstruction, an easement, or it's over over a water line, a sewer line, or anything like that. And also, provided that the township, and I'm not sure what you have for fencing, that it meets the local township ordinance as well. But to
Right.
say just carte blanche, no fences in the front yard is not.
Well, some HOAs do, and there was a comment last time about having this like really nice green space that was totally uninterrupted all the way down, and there isn't really room in the backyard. There's no backyard. The backyard is a driveway, and the front yard is, not.
So I think our fence ordinance, I think, and Jeff can correct me, but the first, like, 25 feet, the fence can only be something like 3 foot, 4 foot high.
Mhm.
So you can still see all the way
top of
down.
it. So my commentary here is, you're gonna have families with young children. There was no interest in having a playground on the property due to insurance and the belief that nobody uses it, which I feel like is probably not true. And there needs to be an ability to have a place for these young families, children to play. And so if the front yard is small, there still needs to be some mechanism that allows for fencing or something that would, you know, be accommodating to these families. So we've talked a lot about people getting hit in the middle of the road, but we haven't talked about, or somebody with a wheelchair, which definitely can happen at younger ages, or people twisting their ankles. But I think we really need to think about, you know, it's gonna be families where the parents are likely under 50 and have smallish, you know, elementary age children.
And then are you talking about private playgrounds or a community playground? If
Well,
it's a community playground, I'm gonna veto that myself.
there's no
And
room
as I
for
said
these
last
townhomes.
week, or last month, you got Everly Park right down the road. It's a pristine public park.
Which is wonderful, but if you've ever been a parent
But
of
it
a
seems like it's never good
3-year-old.
enough.
No, it's the question, the planning commission is not gonna preclude anybody from putting a fence in the front yard.
Right.
And I think Mr. Schultz has said, with a proper application of the HOA guidelines, he's willing to consider approving the fence.
Okay, just asking that it not be outright rejected in the HOA, which, you know, I'm learning, this is what it said,
Yeah.
right?
No, generally, we run our own HOAs during our period of declarant control. And we generally try to find every means we possibly can to say yes. A lot of times it starts out as no. If somebody asks for a 6-foot tall
Right,
stockade
nobody-
fence in their front, well,
Right.
believe me, it has happened.
Yeah.
Because I know what that looks like in 3 years.
Mhm.
We would generally always try to find a way to say yes.
Yeah.
Those are for the safeguards of all the other residents though.
Yeah, I mean, so my request here is just really think about who is going into these homes and what their specific needs are. That we're not designing it for pretty much, well, maybe the solicitor in this room, like, not the target market, it's people who are.
So in our ordinances, we do allow for active and passive recreation facilities that could be installed by the developers or by the developer. What the township has found over the past, my experience, 42 years ago, is that HOAs never last. Nobody wants to contribute money to them, they never last, which is why the township has taken the position that we're taking over the detention basins. He's giving us a fair amount of money to maintain them, and that's what we do there. In addition, the HOA never, well, let me put this way, in all the developments that I've approved since I've been your engineer, which is some, we've never approved on-site recreation facilities anywhere. Zero. All the money, because what happens is that if a developer does come in and offer recreation facilities, that detracts from the $825 recreation fee, which we use for all of our parks and things of that nature. So the township has made pretty much the decision that they don't go anywhere. So that's the position we've taken on it. And I understand what you're saying too, is that having one 100 feet away, you walk down the street, you can go, play in the grass or whatever the case may be. But keep in mind is that if you look at that site too, in Alberto, you've got like what, 50% open space.
Yeah.
So when we talk about passive recreation, obviously the open space provides passive recreation to run through the woods, play with the deer and the turkeys and things like that, and the sticker bushes and the blackberry bushes and things of that nature. So there's all of that 50% of the land. So one of the things we've tried to do in the township is to almost promote PRDs, because now we do have that 50. How much open space do we have?
We have,
That's not real, I mean, yes, I understand the
54
argument here.
acres.
But it is almost double the open
Yeah.
space
Right.
than what's
I
required.
So
just-
now you have 54 acres to go hunting and.
Right, but my 2-year-old's not going hunting. My point is to remember your target market. These are young families, they need a place for their children to play. It's in the front yard, they're going to want a fence. There needs to be an ability to, use that step 2 little play set or whatever that they want to put up. Sorry.
I don't know what happened because we were not allowed to have a fence in front of the house. And I think that's great, where the house is, where the fence starts. But that's for single family homes.
And these are townhomes.
Yeah. And I think maybe we should make an exception for townhomes only. not the single family homes.
As I mentioned, I don't know, I know your ordinance pretty well, I don't know to that level of details. And we always try, and that might be, to your point, sir, that from the corner, is what I don't think we want in a 4-unit townhouse building, just one of those having I don't know that is appropriate. But that's why I vaguely answered that question about, with regard to.
But for the single family homes, they should not be in front of them. They could be,
Right.
Parallel.
That's what happened to us.
Right.
Right on the side, they can go back and the dog can be playing all they want. But for the townhomes, I think this is something.
Dan, you had a question? Good, you had a question to me?
Now, ask it later. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've had some.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Jackie, my name's John. What that is, it says, thanks, Jackie. I've had some experience the last few years knocking on a bunch of doors in PRDs around the place. In the northern part of District 3 of Indiana Township.
Brad, can you pull a microphone up a little bit towards your mouth?
Or I'll just speak louder.
Both is better.
But I'm wondering, as we put these things in, if we're considering some of the future needs that people are going to need, and especially in an environmental situation, and even in particular, I'm concerned about some of the mechanics that go into the mechanical systems that go into these houses and townhouses. I've had people tell me when I go in there, when you have a group of townhouses, the guy on one end has a real problem because he wanted to put in more power for an electric car, and all the electric meters are at the other end of the 3 or 4 blocks. He has to run a line up through his neighbor's attic, and the rentable attics down into his box, in his fuse box. And I'm wondering if we consider future needs, especially more people are having electric cars. And I was having a discussion today with a guy who runs a bunch of car dealerships, and he says a lot of the problems is people have these cars and there's nowhere to charge them. If they can't charge them at home, they're flat out of luck. And the guy that comes to service my car, the new guy, the Tesla guy, he came and put a little box in it so my garage door opens and closes. I said, why don't they have a Tesla? Why doesn't Tesla just put this box, it's $200? Why don't they put it right in the car right now? What happens is a lot of these cars are sold to people who live in townhomes or apartments and they have nowhere to park. And so they don't need that. So my point is, as we do these PRDs, are we insisting that the power rating is sufficient for each house that you can have? That you can put in your destination charges to charge your cars in a reasonable amount of time, rather than a regular 30 amp outlet that you will have for a clothes dryer in the garage, perhaps. But if you have a 70 amp outlet, you can charge a car in 2 or 3 hours instead of 8 hours. So someone is working shifts and coming in and out. But do we make any accommodation? Do we ever consider that we need to? What is the pattern? Have you done the electrical engineering for this business yet?
We will have no involvement to the extent of that design. The utility company will be provided the square footage of the different types of homes, the number of bedrooms, the number of fixtures. We have no say in what they determine being the need for that particular home. Zero. But I will say, however, sir, to answer your question, and I was going to bring it up earlier, with respect to how the power is served to the townhouses, to those attached units, there is no, Jeff, I'm sure you'll agree with me here, there is no opportunity to bring one line in, and then run it through 4 other people's attics to get to mine. What's happening now, in conduit, there'll be a line, a secondary, well, we'll call it the primary service line from the transformer to the meter gang, which is where all 3 or 4 meters may be. That main line will come up, and then it'll individually go back down underground, come across the front or the rear, as we don't have that design yet, and then individually stub up to serve each of those, so that there is access from each home to that meter gang, back to the transformer, so that if someone needed to upgrade individually, they're not crawling through their neighbor's attic to do it.
So it would go through their neighbor's front yard or backyard.
There would be cross easements to accommodate that, more entering how the sidewalks all work, because it's not just the public utilities in the street, it's also us in the front. Gas is gonna be the same, right? I'm speaking correctly for IRC right now. The days of running it through your neighbor's attic are long gone, for obvious reasons.
And it's up to the power, it's up to Duquesne Light or whoever. to
Yeah,
say,
you're talking global at this point in time.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not a, we're talking
I had a
electrical
situation
autonomous.
when I built a garage in my
We don't want a
place.
Tesla guy up in anybody's attic blowing a big 6-inch hole throughout, we just spent all this time,
Well,
trying to.
you know
put
what
smoke
I
barrier.
No.
my garage in, you know, I put that in, you were involved in that.
Right.
I had to put a separate 100-amp circuit in there so I could charge my 3 Tesla vehicles at a reasonable amount of time. And I'm wondering if, I don't know if we have to talk to the power company about that, but I'm concerned, and what I've discussed with other people in PRDs, they come in, they see a nice, comfortable house, especially if it's townhouses. They often find that certainly utilities are not what they will need further down the line.
Well, you know, the problem is that you're probably looking at PRDs that were built 5, 10 years ago. I mean, I'm in a PRD and homes are designed.
If you have a single family home.
I understand,
Well,
but
you were two years.
we're a single family home, but they're designed now, I think they're more commonly designed to accommodate I don't know, I mean, putting my lawyer hat on, I don't know whether under zoning law, the township has the ability to, under the zoning code, mandate what does or doesn't happen inside a building. Okay? It's more focused on what goes on outside. Building code, though, the township, I think, with building code, could make some of these mandates. That's something I think you have to take under consideration.
Yeah, the question is who pays for it, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the power company should have some type of arrangement with the developer to say, you know, are you willing to double the size, because copper is expensive. Double the size of these lines.
Dan, what would be the average service to one of those for the power? How many have to be 100-amp service? Or
150 at least.
Yeah, it'll be at least one. And to answer that, somebody much smarter than me, that First Energy Corporation is taking the data that I compiled that says it's this many single-family homes with this many fixtures, with this square footage, with this, we anticipate number of, 2-car garage, 3-car garage, this many townhomes. We give them all this information, and it generates a kilowatt hour projection. I have no idea how they make a value decision about how many of those folks are gonna have an electric car, how many are gonna have the quick charger, how many want a 3-hour charge, 8-hour charge. That's not,
Now, I'm not an engineer, okay? Could it be an option? Someone comes in, townhouses are a little different, but individual homes, someone comes in, they want to buy, and they go through the whole process of picking their, what they want in a home. And they might say, hey, I have an electric vehicle. Could it be an option to get them a thicker line and charge?
that is already an option for it, if they know upfront.
Okay, so we are already.
Well,
have
the
that.
line won't necessarily be sufficient to cover, if all those houses in that road decide everyone.
I understand, but we are delving into the PUC at this point in time. The Pennsylvania Game Commission could sell that 400 acres to a data center, for all I know, and take every bit of power from a 5-mile radius. I don't have anything to say about that. If I've got line upgrades to accommodate our development,
Planning commission, that's,
No,
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's-
we're,
If a bunch of people down the street wanted to have electric cars, and they all wanted to put in a fast charge, which they tested because of 70 amps, you're gonna have to put a big line down the road.
I think the bottom line is if someone contracts to have a home built for them, they need to specify what they want in it when they build it. If they choose not to have power to handle an electric vehicle, that's their decision. Now, 10 years down the road, if they decide, I wanna buy an electric vehicle now, where's my power? That's their problem. They made a choice when they moved into that facility. Okay?
We can't mandate.
And we can't.
No.
So I appreciate your point that you want us to consider it, but.
The point to consider, I'm saying, is should we think to the future a little bit and see that the main line is sufficient to cover that, not to each house. If you suddenly add in a 50 amp service or 70 amp service, all those numbers down there, turns out the main feed is probably not sufficient. I know that from my own case, because when I redid my house, Line came in and took out the 25 kVA transformer and put in a 50 kVA.
I think what you're asking is that's up to the power company who is in the business of selling power. And obviously they want to sell as much as they possibly can. So it's their decision, but as I was just explaining to Preston, is do you remember the days, and I'm gonna go back a little bit, when microwave ovens came out? And all of a sudden you had to go from a 75 or a 50 amp service to 100 in order to accommodate the microwave, right? And it has to have a separate line. Well, this is the same thing going forward with your Tesla. It's like the Bellagio's, how we design these things. So he may have only a clock on his house. I may be using my electric dryer. You may be using your Tesla. So it's like the Bellagio. So they design it in such a way that theoretically, if this many features are on, that it can support that need. That's something you'd have to talk
So
about with
the
the power
township has
company.
no say over that, then it's the power company who decide
Who's selling power.
what they want to do.
That's what they want to do. They want to sell power.
Dan, do you have oversight of that once
No.
this goes in? They just
No.
say, this is what we're gonna do.
Nor do we have that for gas lines, whether you have gas stove versus electric. So it goes on.
Thank you. Anything else?
So I think your options are that you can vote on their recommendation, your recommendation if it's to approve with conditions, or if you feel that you need more time than the current time frame, which would, I think what you have now would be you vote, right, to table, then we would need to do an extension agreement. And that would push the public hearing from May 13th back to, I think, June 10th. And those are your options
If you
at this
table.
point. Right. If you decide that you need to table. You could also vote. That's right. You got it.
Tentatively approve it.
Tentative. Well,
approve it.
this is your vote on your recommendation to council.
What's the board's feeling on this?
Dan,
I don't,
did they cover everything that you requested the last meeting? Did they cover everything on all your objections or your?
That plus what the planning commission
Correct.
asked me to do.
So they basically came and agreed to or had solutions to everything that we asked them for, correct?
Yes, you have a workable concept at this point.
with the provision that based on what the school district decides, it might make some adjustments at that time.
Which I think you can cover at the final, as he suggested. So our recommendation would be to tentatively approve the tentative approval of this plan conditioned upon the engineer's letter dated March 20th.
And I had two, well, probably three conditions to that. Well, not a condition. One would be that we'd also recommend, granting of modifications that
Yes,
are being
I was just
requested.
mentioning it.
Okay. And then I wrote two things down. A condition that if the school district later refuses to cooperate with bus service into the phase two, that the developer will install a bus shelter at the intersection of Fairview and Mill Road. And the last last condition would be that the developer, the township engineer, will coordinate on, installing, appropriate crosswalks on roads 2 and 3 between the, old sidewalks and the, townhouse.
And the looping sidewalk along Fourth Lane.
Yep.
Very good, Kevin.
Are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion similar to what Dan said, plus those.
Dan, you just said Forest View, you mean Philview, correct?
Philview,
Sorry,
correct.
yep.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second for the motion.
With those two conditions.
Three.
Three conditions, I would say.
Motion by Kevin, second by Peter. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And Mr. Chairman, if you could direct the township to schedule a public hearing.
You're the board of supervisors scheduled for the hearing. Okay. So it's been approved. Now we have approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recommended. Board.
My understanding then is that the Board of Supervisors will vote at their April meeting
sorry, what?
for advertising, for the public meeting on May 13th.
Hidden balls.
Okay. Anything else you need?
Make sure you have a rendering of the single.
Buses, crosswalks,
I asked, they're gonna, the revert, putting them in the back. Yes. They didn't come in this year. Yes, thank you.